Well, good morning if you're in Australia. Good evening if you're in North America. It's that time of week again. It's time for Talking Baseball Australia Live. Let's roll the open in 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughn. It's baseball's best mate all year round. From the batter's box to
Yes,
the mound.
indeed. Welcome to the show, everybody. Adjust the volume there. Maybe a little hot there for you guys. I don't know what's going on. Are you guys having the same trouble in your neck of the woods in Twitter or with Twitter that I'm having? The last hour or so, it's kind of been in and out. I've been trying to send up a call the pen an hour ago to promote the show and try to promote the show a moment ago, and it kind of comes and goes. I don't know if it's this neck of the woods or maybe my neck of the woods, your neck of the I don't know. But my name's Dan Vaughn. Glad you're along. Baseball's best mate. Of course, Talking Baseball Australia live here on your Friday morning if you're across the great southern land. And, of course, in North America, you are on a Thursday evening. A current Thursday evening that at the moment's got a dandy of a ball game going on from San Diego's Petco Park. Just a moment ago as we came on the air, Tampa left 2 aboard, actually chased the starter, Paredes from the Astros rotation, chased him. Dusty Baker came and got him, but the bullpen got out of the spot, and Tampa left a couple of men aboard, one of them being G-Man Choi, a former ABLer, was left aboard, and it's 3-2 as they're playing, I believe, now on the 7th. I think that's where we're at. But basically what it is, the Astros had to win to stave off elimination last night. They did that. They're doing it again tonight, trying to stave off elimination one more day. Just takes one more. And sometimes, almost all the time, it's that last one that's the hardest one. And the Rays trying to get that one more win to take it onto the World Series. The other series begins in about, it doesn't begin, it continues in about just under 2 hours' time in North America, 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7, actually be less than an hour, about 50 minutes from now at Globe Life Field in Arlington. We're talking a bit about that in a moment, but it's the Dodgers and Braves. Big win last night, that record-setting first inning for Los Angeles, and that got them over the hump and got them in the win column, 2-1 Atlanta. Show busy one today. My broadcast partner, Paul Morgan, may or may not be here. He had a last-second conference call come up. You know those things happen. Of course, he's in Perth. The call was coming from the east, and, well, it kind of ruined his brekkie and baseball experience this morning. But Paul may join us. He may not. If he hops on, great. If he doesn't, all good. We're going to stumble through this thing together. And, of course, always your questions and comments. I want to hear from you guys out there, wherever you're watching. I got several things for you. Really, one question of the day I'm going to give you in a moment. I'll give you the rundown of the show. Today, it's the headlines, basically. ABL Plan B pushed back again. We're going to talk about that. There's not a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about that again. Just gave you your MLB playoff update. Also, a possible return to MLB to the Australian shores. We're going to discuss that. Also, some thoughts on Jacinta Barclay and her passing as well. Also, we're going to roll through the ABL hot stove. Plenty of news and notes to go with there. And some interesting things happening in really 2 cities pretty close to each other. 2 closest rivals geographically in Canberra and Sydney. Some good things happening also off the field. One of them in sponsorship and one of them coming via the Manny effect. We're going to get to all that. And, of course, your question of the week and your questions and comments throughout the show. I got them for you. Love to have you guys. As a matter of fact, if you got one and you think you got something good, I'll even do this. I'm going to throw this out there. If you think you got something good, you want to pop on and go in the green room, we'll let you do that. If you want to go where our guests go, we'll let you on there. Kind of open line format. You want to talk about the ABL, I'd love to have you. You can just, I'll let you pop on. But if not, your questions and comments throughout the show, I'd love to hear from you. And we'll get those on the screen for you as well. I'll try to answer what I can and what we do know, up-to-date news on the Australian Baseball League here on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Again, my name's Dan Vaughn. Glad you're along, running solo here, flying this thing solo today. But glad you're along and hope you're doing well and safe wherever you're watching us around this beautiful world of ours. Question of the week, and here's the question of the week I've got for you guys. It's a little loaded. It's a two-part question, okay? Question, because I got some of you folks watching in North America, majority of you folks in Australia. But here's my two-part question. The question of the week, if you're able to travel in 2021, which kind of up in the air right now, spring training probably not going to be an option for a lot of folks, no matter where you are. But I'm going to just go ahead and fast forward to 2024, okay? Will you go to Melbourne to watch the MLB? Is that a must-do trip? If you went and if Sydney was a must-stop for you in 14, is 24, 10 years later, which is the projected timeline of the MLB playing in Melbourne, will you make the trip to Victoria? If you're obviously in Victoria, you're probably going to make the trip. But if you're in Perth or perhaps in your baseball bred in Korea or in North America, will you make that? Was that a field trip you'll go see to watch Major League Baseball one more time? And then plan part B of the question, because this goes both ways. For some of you folks in North America, my question is, will you come see that series in Australia? For you folks in Australia, will you go see that series in Australia? But no matter where you're at in 2021, if you're in Australia, in North America, will you go see an MLB game in 2021? If you don't live in a market, and if you do, let's say you do. I mean, if you live in a market that's got MLB, will you go to a major league game? And there goes Max. There's our mascot. You all right, bud? We're on live worldwide, and he just likes to contribute. Okay. Again, and then the part of the question is, will you go see MLB no matter where you are in 21? Not will you watch it on TV, but will you go see a game in person? You live in the West Coast of the United States. Will you go to Dodger Stadium? Will you go to San Francisco? Will you go to Seattle? You're down south, you go to Atlanta or to Florida, or you go to Texas and watch a game in Houston. Will you do that? That's my question. Stuart, by the way, you're going to play a key part in the show today because Stuart and I had a really good conversation via Messenger this week. He brought up a very good point we're going to get to a bit later. 100% if we're allowed more than 5 kilometers from home. Yes, I hope, boy, if by 2024 we can't go see the games in Melbourne, the big league games, whoever that may be. Next we'll talk about who it might be. A lot of folks are speculating who it might be, but you figure West Coast teams sort of make sense, but you're going to want some big market teams too. I would think that a West Coast team with maybe a Midwest team, perhaps. But yeah, Stuart's right on. Again, I'm 21 now, not 24 for the MLB in Melbourne. For 21, are you going to make a trip to see an MLB game if you're in North America or if you're in Australia? If you're in Australia and right now we can't travel in and out, can we do that? Will you do that? And I think a lot of folks, I saw my mate Rob Hobb, who's in Perth, said that, boy, if he can get out, he's going to see MLB again this summer. I think Stuart's right there as well. Make sure MLB postseason update quickly. They're now in I think I told you 5th inning right now. In the States, they're on the TBS networks, depending on where you are in the country, but TBS, TNT, TBS family. 3-2, bottom 5, Astros trying to stay alive. They're down 3-1 to Tampa, but they're up in the ballgame 3-2. And they can win tonight. They'll keep this thing going. It's just win or go home right now. And they are now going to the 6th inning. They're through 5. It is now 3-2. Still Houston as the Rays are coming to the plate in the 6th inning. So a lot of ABL connections. And I thought about this, and Paul and I had this on our topic wheel to talk about. A lot of really cool names that you've never heard of unless, well, you've heard of Ji-Man Choi, obviously, and you've heard of Mike Brosseau. But if you don't follow the ABL, you probably not heard of those two. And what's kind of fun about the Rays in general, unless you're really a hardcore MLB fan, and there are a lot of you out there, but even me, a guy who follows the MLB like I do, a lot of those names that I'm seeing, and some of these names are coming out of nowhere that are becoming heroes for the Rays. And that's what makes baseball so much fun, I think, at postseason, is these heroes of postseason, these folks that come out of nowhere, these players who shock and help shock the world or make their help their Cinderella story, as that glass slipper fits. But I'm glad you guys are along wherever you're watching us in the world. And again, I'm going to just fire this off here. I'm going to do a little producing on the fly here. Join us with your comments. Here we go. I'm glad you guys are along. And again, Paul is may or not pop on, but if he does, we'll know. And again, if you guys want to pop on, I'd be more than happy to. Because we didn't know this till about an hour ago, and Paul messaged me saying, mate, I'm gonna have to leave you hanging. It's all good. We're teammates, and we'll make it work. But if somebody does want to jump on, I didn't get a chance to drum up a guest or anything, because originally, as we segue into what's going on in a moment, before I get to that, let's get to the thing that really I think struck a chord with a lot of us. I would say, and again, I'm obviously not native Australia. I didn't grow up there. I have some residency status, and I feel like I do know the country. I don't know it like folks that live there all their lives. But when I saw this name come up on the wire this week, it was heartbreaking, because this young lady was just a pioneer in sport worldwide for the country of Australia, for the women's athletics. Just an amazing woman. And Jacinda Barclay passing on Monday in Perth, of course, Western Australia native. I had not officially, we've met in passing when there was some baseball functions, I believe in 16, 15, somewhere in there, with Baseball WA. There was the Western, the local Western state team came out, and I knew who she was, and kind of, met her in passing. Didn't know her personally, but I know the story. And I don't think my North American friends quite realize just what a special athlete and what a special person, an ambassador of sport this young lady was. Put it to you this way. She wasn't just good at one sport, two sports, but three sports at the highest level. And not only that, she was a quality individual at the highest level. You can think of all your two sport stars. You think of your Bo Jacksons, who played the NFL and in the MLB, Deion Sanders to a degree, but even the greatest athlete, give me the greatest sport athlete. You want a little debate about LeBron James and Michael Jordan? You can. Who's the greatest of all time? In North America, they debate about Tom Brady. We can go through cricketers left and right. Aussie rules players. We can go and debate the merits. But how many three-sport stars, and not just in one country, internationally, and playing sports in other countries? And that's what she did. She was a heck of an ambassador. And as Paul and I talked about 2 weeks ago, we were talking a little bit about, the opportunities for young ladies and women in sport. This is the kind of thing that he'll tell his young daughter, and I'll tell my two college-age girls, this is a young lady to look up to. And we lost a special person in Australia and in worldwide sport. And thoughts and prayers going out to the family and to all friends, teammates, fans, countrymen, everybody. It's a tough loss, and it's one of those that you saw on the wires here in North America as well. Again, it was news. I think it was a little blurb on ESPN Scroll about her. It was carried on Yahoo in North America, all across as well. So I'm going to lead off with that. But yes, a very, very sobering week it was. But rest in peace in Jacinda Barclay, just one of the all-time greats of sport in the world. And her story will resonate, and most importantly, what a great person. So let's get that out of the way first. I usually, in journalism, you'll want to keep those stories at the break. We don't have a break today, and I thought let's lead off with that and get that behind the MLB items. Note. Okay. We were supposed to. Okay, hold on. Time out, guys. I want you guys to meet somebody. Here he is, folks. Come here, bud. Come here. We'll get the lights there. There we go. There he is. Yes, I'm wearing shorts. There he is. There's Max. He's a big T-Bones fan. Hey, bud, you want to go to Kansas and see the T-Bones and Royals? Hey, buddy, want to go to Kansas? Want to go to Kansas? You don't want to go to Kansas. Want to go to Australia? Quarantine for a couple? Well, they'll quarantine you for 2 months. There he is. That's Max the dog, the official mascot of the Kansas City T-Bones broadcast network. Anyway, just what you know who is barking there, okay? Got a lovely iced coffee this morning for you folks. It's evening here, morning where you are, but it's a little iced coffee for me. Okay. We were supposed to have Cam Vale on today, and he had agreed, and he's got a standing invitation to join us. He would planned on joining us. We had a conference call with some folks in Australia earlier in the week, and Cam messaged me beforehand, basically saying, "Hey, we're not going to be able to do it on Friday. We won't have anything." So we knew this. Talking Baseball Australia exclusive knew that most of the week that Cam Vale would not be on with us today. No news, good news. No, it's kind of like this, folks. It's like you know what your Christmas present is, sort of. You kind of saw it from a distance, maybe. When you're a kid, did you ever kind of think that you knew what it was, and you're feeling the package, but it's under the tree, but you can't open it? It's kind of like that. We don't know if it's a good present or bad present. It's kind of the same way. We call it Plan B, but it's really Plan Z. We talked about this last week, and I gave you the quote from Cam Vale. He talked about, and really the delay was on COVID protocols. We talked about that, where to best to locate the hubs and move the teams. He mentioned that, and really the government negotiations, those are still ongoing, as you guys saw today. Friday morning was the first trans-Tasman bubble coming from New Zealand into New South Wales via international protocols. Of course, it's quarantine-free coming into those two places and Northern Territory, I do believe. But there's still an ongoing, ever-changing thing. I can tell you from a North American standpoint, different cities. This is where I live in Dallas-Fort Worth, the fourth largest metropolitan area in the country. Think of it like being basically, being the size of a little bit, it's bigger than Brisbane, but I mean like the size of Sydney. They raised the COVID level today to the worst color, red. That the threat was encouraging you to stay home. It's an ever-changing thing, and so under that whole guise, Cam Vale and the ABL are having to fight through this thing with ever-changing things. While the government's trying to work with that. You remember, the government's trying to work with, baseball and cricket and all the other sports, right? They're working with all the sports. Plus, oh, by the way, population is overseas, stranded. Folks are trying to get in and out of the country, travel across state lines. There are bigger fish to fry probably than baseball, cricket, and whatever else is lined up. That being said, they're trying to work hard to get those folks sorted and get this thing sorted, what they can do, what they can't do. And I believe, and I told this to Paul on our call this morning, my take's pretty simple. And I don't know how you guys feel about this out there watching. Here's my take. I believe this is the next plan coming, whatever that is, you want to call it, B, C, D, Z, whatever, will be a shock to the system. I think it's pretty safe to say, we already know, we've read the tea leaves, we realize, and we had Adam Dobb from Sydney on a couple weeks ago. He kind of gave us some insight. We had Mark Reedy on 2 weeks ago. He gave us some insight. I'm only doing a live show worldwide, and my dog is going, honey. This is what's so beautiful about live social media and doing this, is that you never know when the dog's going to erupt. Okay, what I'm trying to say, and he probably agrees with me, is that the next move will be a shock to the system, okay? This next will be the big move. It'll involve, obviously, we believe a couple of hubs probably, if not one, maybe two hubs, perhaps even a limited competition, much like a WBC or Olympic qualifier or something you get after the Olympics, where you do a pool play for 10 days or so and go from there, kind of a World Cup style. That's been rumored as well. but it'll be a shock to the system, whatever it is, because what we thought we were going to get was the original ABL format. That's not going to happen. B, we thought we'd get the bubble in New Zealand and the Australian Conference playing interstate, going across state lines. That's not going to happen. So the next move will be a shock to the system, I believe. And I think Paul agrees with me on that. And Talking Baseball Australia, from what we have been told and what our sources are telling us, it will be a bit of a change. It will not be what you've seen so far, but what we've been talking about is what you're going to see, okay? You're going to see something, some kind of something we've been talking about. May or may not involve imports. We'll have to find that out. But the next move will be the shocker. That's going to be the one that's going to be oh gosh. Okay. From then, it'll be slight adjustments. It may be 4 teams here, 3 here, whatever the case may be. 9 innings, 7 innings, TV, radio, whatever. The different adjustments, playing here, playing there. Adelaide didn't play, Brisbane didn't play, or whatever. Those things, slight tweaks will be made. But that's what I see going forward. It's what happened in the American Association in independent ball, the only league that really, minor league that got through it this year of any note as far as playing at least a half season. MLB did the same thing. MLB announced what they would do, and when they got there, they did do some tweaks here and there. And of course, they went along to the postseason. We're out was really about a month ago. They finally really finalized those plans. They weren't really sure what they were going to do in bubble or not bubble, and they wound up to bubble. So I think what you're going to see is they're going to rip the Band-Aid off. It'll be some kind of major shock to the system, whatever that's going to be from the plan B, which was New Zealand bubble and the Australian Conference. That's what you're going to see. And then from there, they'll make the slight adjustments. And those slight adjustments may be dates as well. This thing may be pushed back in. I just think pushing it back in January is very possible as well. So that's what we think will happen. Cam was confident enough to tell me that I believe we will have something next week, and he will come on the show and join us next Friday morning when there's an announcement to be made. So just stand apprised of that. He's already committed to that. I know he'll join us, and we do believe probably midweek, if not Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to see something coming from the ABL, because you're getting to the point now where you're midway through October. You're 4, 6, 8 weeks out of starting. I mean, for example, the new carton of milk I bought, is going to the expiration dates in late November. I mean, we don't have much time here, and I think a lot of fans agree with me that they're going to have to make some kind of call here, and that's coming. So that's when we start off there with that news, what's going to happen, where we're going to be, and that's where we stand. Okay, you may have seen this early this week too. There was a piece in two of the Melbourne papers too. Gilbert Gardier, who spent some time, I believe, working with the Aces, my first or second year, wrote this piece, posted it in several of the papers online. And interesting take. The ABL, pretty fired up to hear this, but MLB returning to the shores of Australia. Where does that stand? 2024 appears to be when that'll happen. Of course, you guys remember the 2014 season. What a smashing success MLB pulled off. Many folks thought there was no way they could turn a baseball. It wasn't so much the cricket ground being turned into a ballpark. It was the Major League Baseball they've got specifications a mile long or kilometers long, 100 kilometers long, let's say. And those specifications, from mound height to warning tracks and the type of turf the warning track can have, and all kinds of things, where bullpens are located, and where the lights and where the illumination of the lights are, positioning in the outfield, for all kinds of reasons. They have a long list of things. So they pulled it off in 2014. There's been some debate in these parts, Talking Baseball Australia. We've talked about this a bit, that Major League Baseball came over in 14. The ABL was kind of in a transition period then. Now with a 4-year leadway, I believe the ABL and Baseball Australia will make the most of this opportunity. But again, a lot still be said. Now, we know that Major League Baseball did close their Australian office, what was it, a couple years ago? It was 2015, I believe, 16, something like that. Basically, it coincided when they pulled out of basically footing the bill for the ABL. But there's still a very large commitment internationally. It's not uncommon in North American sport to have a footprint overseas. The NBA is very into China. They very much want that Chinese market, and China is a very big TV partner for the NBA. The NFL has been over in Europe, had a European league for a while. They play games in Mexico every year. They're not playing this year because of COVID, but the London series, they usually play 2 games in London. Jacksonville's been one of those teams the last couple of years. They usually play in Mexico, and then they've mentioned going over to Australia as well. The NHL, of course, is an international game, playing both in North America, in Canada and United States. But the main 3 sports in North America, baseball, football, basketball, have all played overseas. And of course, Major League Baseball was set to play in London this last year, and I still believe that's where they're going to go first. I believe, and just if you know what Major League Baseball is thinking, I believe they're going to do a European / Australian, Japan, Korea, on again, off again. The flight from New York City, Boston, Eastern Seaboard to London is anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. It's a pretty easy flight compared to Australia. If you want to go to Australia from New York, well, you're looking at getting halfway across the United States for 4 hours or 3 hours, then jumping the 16-hour flight from Dallas to Sydney. You're looking at 20-hour transit time by plane, and some recovery time. It's tough to do that and get over and get back for a 1-game thing or for a series or whatever. But I do believe that what Major League Baseball will do is do Korea, Japan, Australia on a rotating basis, and you're going to see also Major League Baseball with inroads, not just in the UK, but also in Germany and Italy. There's a growing baseball community as well in Israel with their World Baseball Classic numbers, and Italy has also been a very good growing market as well in Germany, which makes perfect sense. A lot of folks do not realize this, but during the United States post-war occupation of Germany, there was literally a 40,000 seat crowd of GIs with German prisoners of war acting as ushers and ballpark concessionaires that put on a Armed Forces World Series back in 1945. And that was done actually there in Nuremberg. That's a true story. It had never been filmed. Never been a movie about it, but that's a real story. So what I'm trying to tell you is Major League Baseball is going to make their move overseas regardless, and Australia makes perfect sense. Now, what I will tell you is Talking Baseball Australia has learned, and this comes from Paul himself, but Major League Baseball has already kicked the tires in Australia already for the upcoming 2024 or maybe earlier series there. They've also looked at other venues, not just Melbourne. Perth is also in the mix. I know folks will probably poo-poo on that idea and think I'm crazy, but right now the new stadium in Perth is one of the top stadiums in the world. At the moment, as far as venues go for baseball, you've got any retractable roof stadium in North America. You've also got the new LA stadium for football, the Vegas stadium, and the stadium that Jerry Jones built for the Dallas Cowboys in 2009. Those are the premier venues worldwide. In that same mix right now is Optus Stadium in Perth. It is one, and having been there myself, I can tell you it is every bit as nice as, and I've been to Jerry World a bunch of times. It's as good as that stadium, and it's a very solid venue. So don't count out a possible Australian tour of Major League Baseball, perhaps a spring training tour, perhaps a game in Melbourne, one in Perth. Don't discount that possibility. I know a lot of folks think that it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 game deal in one location. That's very possible. But I also think because the venue is the question mark, that of the venues, what's the one that makes the most sense with all the new bells and whistles? The new stadium in Perth. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I know that Talking Baseball Australia can tell you that Major League Baseball has looked into the stadium in Perth, and that goes back 6 months ago. They've already done their due diligence. and they also know about Melbourne as well. Of course, Melbourne's been a huge baseball supporter over the years. It makes perfect sense. Going back to the old 1950s newsreels, the big crowds that used to go watch baseball in Melbourne. So we know that Victoria is a baseball hotbed, but don't be shocked if you do see baseball played in multiple venues in Australia sooner rather than later. But that's the story pretty much. Again, it's exciting news. The league should be fired up. Anytime our game gets exposure in Australian soil, it's a big deal, whether it be Olympics, World Baseball Classic, Major League Baseball. This is huge. And hopefully this time, as Talking Baseball Australia commentary brings you, this time the league will be better positioned than they were last time to really parlay the growth of the league when Major League Baseball does return to Australian shores. So we'll be watching that story going forward, the return of baseball, Major League Baseball to Australia, perhaps as early as 2024. Dan Vaughn with you on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. I'm glad you're along. There's your link to join us if you want to join the green room. I'll get you on. You got a question, comment, please fire them away. We're glad you're watching worldwide. Let us know what you got, what you're doing, and what your questions and comments are. I'd love to have you. And if you want to fire them away there on the talk line as well, just to type your comments in, get your questions. We're live. I'll answer them for you live as well. So more than happy to offer any kind of question answers or just your comments. As remember, the question of the day, will you watch Major League Baseball in person? Will you go to the series in Melbourne? Will you go in 2024, regardless of where you are? And number two, in 2021, if you can travel, are you going to see Major League Baseball in person? Those are two questions of the broadcast day here in Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate. Okay, we've covered the Melbourne and the Perth possible wild card, but yes, there's going to be baseball played in MLB style at some point in Australia. And again, it looks to be some kind of rotating basis, I would think, but it's what North American sports doing is growing their games, NBA, MLB, and NFL. You're seeing all that. Okay, I mentioned the 1 more week delay already. And I, in case you joined us hoping for some news there, we don't really have anything. We just expect Cam Villa to join us next week. Let's jump to the hot stove. Busy hot stove. I mean, where do we start? I mean, I'll say this. If you're a fan of the Australian Baseball League and you're worried about baseball not being played in Australia this 2020-21 season, I think you got to feel pretty good when you see things like the Adelaide Giants doing what they're doing, signing players, when you see not just imports but also domestics being signed. You got to feel pretty good. Oh, sorry about that, folks. You heard that. You got to feel pretty good when you see names continue to pop up over and over again. I mean, and this is what I saw in North America last spring. In North America, leading to the American Association season, teams are still signing players up until a month before. A lot of those guys wound up being dispersed to other teams when the 6 teams played and 6 teams didn't. But you knew if you weren't going to play, you wouldn't be signing players. Now, granted, these contracts, as Paul mentioned last week, probably have a clause in there, should we play, but you're seeing, teams getting the band back together again, and we're going to start right there. The right-handed pitcher, Michael Gahan, resigned for his 3rd season with the Adelaide Bite. 25-year-old from Lismore, 20 appearances last couple of years, ERA of 4.43. Mostly was a starter early, but it's really become a bullpen piece. And I don't think I have. Do I have his photo? I guess I do. Sorry about that, guys. I'm actually producing and chatting with you guys. Here we go. Producing and chatting with you guys at the same time. But he's logged 26 1/3, most of any Australian on that Giants roster. Anybody else still kind of strangely when they see the name Adelaide and want to say, because he's wearing the bike kit there. Do you all stop yourselves and say Adelaide? It's kind of like the Washington football team. Or anybody else the same problem? But I represented Team Australia, the under 2018 under 23s in Colombia. And he's product of the university system of the States. Actually not university of, it's Montana State, which incidentally, to connect the dots here, I have a family member that's going there right now. My sister-in-law's daughter is at Montana State, but he went there and also went to played a little time in the U.S. college system, also leading the Montana club. Actually went to Montana State Billings, not the university. Went 5-1 in college, 142 innings, but went all the way to the championship game in 18 in that Division II against Western Oregon. But he's a guy that again, we talk about this a lot, and Paul and I talked about this. You got to get your locals, you got to get your guys, you got to get your Aussie talent. You got one in the Adelaide Giants making the headlines there to start us off in this week's show. So I see that. I love that Giant logo. I love the Giant kid in general. But anyway, all good. All righty, let's move to the folks out west. We mentioned that this is kind of formality, I believe. I mean, I don't think there was much of a doubt that you would see this gentleman. We actually talked about this already, and it was actually in our Call the Pin, which I was hoping to air a moment ago. And while we're here, let's see if it airs. Let's just see if my tweet will go out. Will my tweet go out? No. You guys having trouble with Twitter too? Yeah, see, my Twitter won't work. It's not working either. But we go to Perth, and Jess Williams. Let me tell you a little story about this young man. Do you recall the 1 year that Matt Kennelly took over the helm of the Perth Heat? It would have been the 16-17 season. It was a youth movement then. Lockie Dale and the brass at the time decided to go the youth movement. Matty came in, was player manager, but for the most part, it was a transition year. Kennelly was also going to the police academy at the time, which he's now working in the police force out in the West. But one of my favorite people in the game, Matt Kennelly, was put in charge of the reconstruction project of transferring the Heat's older core players to a younger group. Alex Hall was a guy who made his debut that year. It also was the first year that Alan D. San Miguel went to Melbourne to play for the Aces. So Alex jumped right in there and was behind the dish. Jess Williams, Robbie Glendenning was still in his final year in college in the States, so he hadn't quite appeared back. We hadn't appeared to the Perth radar yet, but that's where it all began with Alex Hall. And Jess Williams parlayed kind of right behind him, jumping right in behind, his mate and Jess and Alex, dear friends. Jess came in the next year, becoming Rookie of the Year in the Australian Baseball League. One of the most likable young men you're ever going to meet. He is that core that Perth needs, and what Paul talks about. And Paul talked about this last week. This was our Call the Pin for today. Outside of Adelaide, there's probably no team that could just say, you know what, I'm going to roll this bunch out there now. The Heat, with their depth in their talent pool through high performance, so what they've done out there with strength and conditioning and their high performance program. Andy Kyle's been a part of that for a long time, Steve Fish prior. But they can basically plug and play an Australian team right now in any competition. Most teams can do that, but Perth can do that and probably feel pretty good that they've got guys that can do that for years. Jess is a guy that for 10 more years could be holding down whatever position they want him to play. And he's got, of course, the big barrel of the bat, some pop. The one unfortunate thing, and I think this is one thing we've not talked about much, but he's one of the young men who has fallen victim to the whole career derailment through the COVID situation. Jess Williams, probably still with the Brewers, playing another year in the Pioneer League, if not low A this last year. But because of COVID and because of the Major League Baseball taking their affiliates and paring them down, we've talked about that a little bit. MILB has now basically been run by the MLB. They're contracting certain leagues. There's fewer teams, fewer minor league jobs, fewer places to play. And also with the COVID situation, not playing this year, some gentlemen, Jake Baker, for example, lost his spot with the Tigers organization. They're not alone. And Jess Williams was released by the Brewers organization. But I believe he's got a high upside. I also believe he'll have a chance to be re-signed again, if not in North America, perhaps in Oceania somewhere, or in Europe, or independent ball. That's also a very big possibility. But Jess Williams, a Rookie of the Year in 2018, year-old, still only 21, 16-17 debut. He was part of that 16-17 team, was the Rookie of the Year in 18. It was Jess, and I remember vividly going to Victoria and George Brett was there holding court there, and Jess Williams and Alex Hall didn't know who George Brett was. They knew who he was. They didn't really know how good of a ball player he was. And I asked Alex, I said, Alex, and Jess was standing there, I said, who do you think's one of the best players that you follow? Who's the guy you think is the guy? Well, Derek Jeter, of course. Okay. Well, this guy, George Brett, was our Derek Jeter back in the day. And they both stopped down and went and got his autograph and talked to him. It was really cool to see those young Australians talking to George Brett back in 16-17 after the Perth series against the Aces. That would have been that first year for both those gentlemen. But next year he gets that Rookie of the Year, 237, 241, 4 homers in 107 ball games, 8 RBIs last year, 237. And he is excited to get back. He has the culture in him. He knows what the Heat experience is about. It's about winning. It's about Claxton Shields. And you can just hear his quotes. Need to take care of some unfinished business. And he's ready to go. We're looking forward to reaching out and having him and Alex both on future shows. And if I would have had a little earlier time, we would have got him on this morning. But anyway, yes, Stuart, you're a good point. Brisbane would disagree. Outfield depth be concerned, but otherwise Brisbane, Australian. And I wish, you know what? Let me play this for you guys. Let me see if it'll load in, because I was trying to tweet this out for you guys. Let me give you Paul's comments last week. Let me see if it'll load in. If it loads in, I'll play it for you guys. And let me see, because this is what I was going to play for you guys leading up to the show. And let me see if it'll load. Give me just a moment here. Producing the fly. This is what Paul was saying. Yeah, it's a little large. Let me try it this way. Let me do this, guys. Let me screen share this. And let me give you Paul's comment. I think this is what Stuart's onto, and I think where Paul's coming from. Let me give you guys this. Oops, sorry about that. Let me do this. Let me screen share. Give me just a second here. Screen share. Don't you love you producing the fly? Here we go. Chrome tab. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's see what happens here. Okay. I do believe, I'm going to give this to you guys. I'm going to bring down Jess's picture. Let me bring down Stuart's comments as well. So let me bring these down. Let me get this up for you guys. This was Paul and I's Call the Pen that would have been up if we could get it to work for us today. We can't. But let me go ahead and play you the video that Paul and I had from earlier today. Let me go ahead and give it to you guys. Where is it? Here we go. Let's play it for you guys right here.
This is where the Heat have such an advantage over other teams. They almost have a ready-made. They're probably the only team really that have a ready-made ABL team could roll out now and be quite competitive and successful.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other teams now are fair to say Adelaide's got a lot of people in Australia and whatnot, but they are one of the very few teams who still have such a strong core of local talent that basically can fill every position. But
let me ask you, this is on this same subject. Let's just say, for example, that this whole bubble system, as they go back to the bubble, let's say it all turns out where Auckland has to come over, but they can't get all those big leaguers in. Some of these high name guys just number doesn't let them. Settling your face with what imports can get in, can't get in. But it is an advantage for Adelaide and for the Heat to have those young Australians you can basically field a team right now. That's a huge advantage. I'm not saying those other teams can't do it. I think every state, every city can do it. But you do have that advantage. That could bode well for those two clubs.
100%, and you think right now if all the import contracts get blown up, like if you can't, by that I mean if you can't get players into the country, like all of a sudden, we've been so gung-ho on the Aces for such a long period of time, and all of a sudden you go, well, boy, all of a sudden they look a little thin. But it's, and the Heat, to their credit, and to the development and the high-performance programs, and, this goes from Andy Kyle, then Ken McGee down at Darling Range to the high-performance program that they have, and the guys at Diamond Fitness and Johnny Ogilvy and Dean White and all these guys who do such a great job at strength and conditioning the local talent, that they're in a good spot.
There we go. That's our call to pin. Again, for some reason, it wouldn't load up on the – oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. It re-queued. It just started playing again. Sorry about that. Live, Facebook Live. By the way, let's reset the show. Talking Baseball Australia Live. My name is Dan Vaughn. Flying solo today. Solo with Paul Morgan. My broadcast partner is off today and a little business work there in the radio world. But glad you guys are along talking baseball here on your Friday morning in Australia, Thursday night in North America. But Stuart made a very good point, too. That a lot, and again, it'd be interesting to see, and I think this is a very interesting question. Stuart, you might, I'm probably going to, I don't think strike a nerve. I think Stuart will probably agree with me here. It would be interesting to see, and I've seen this from fans, how this thing would handicap out. Who would be the pick? What would the punters say if it was just Australian players? Just Australian players only, no imports, no big leaguers, just Australian big leaguers, but just your Aussie players. How would the league look this season if that was the case? And I think what Paul was saying was that you've got some younger players in Adelaide's case and in Perth's case, and really Victoria as well. I mean, all of this in Brisbane, they've all got them. But I guess what Paul and I were saying was for the long haul, for the next 10 years, you've got Alex Hall, long haul, and Jess Williams, Robbie Glendenning, those three bodies right there, three solid, for sure. And I'm sorry, Ulrich Bajowski as well. That's four. You got four mainstays for at least 10 or more years that I think for the league going forward, having marketable domestic stars, that's going to be a good thing. I mean, that's a good. I think that's where Paul and I are coming from. Speaking of Melbourne, and Stuart, by the way, this is what I mentioned earlier. Stuart Cable, very dear mate of the show. We had a good conversation this week on Messenger, and I did not realize this. And Paul and I were talking about this last night a little bit too. That there is some advantage. For example, last week there in the West, they kicked off a huge kickoff. It was a huge kickoff for baseball, Western Australia, the State League. It was a big festival. Paul mentioned that he was going out and watching Ulrich and others play, and it was they had a big Western Australia Baseball Hall of Fame kickoff as well with their new museum they'll be opening. The State League's going. Stuart mentioned to me, and I didn't realize this at the time, and it didn't dawn on me until he mentioned to me, but that not all states are rocking and rolling as it goes with their State League baseball. Victoria's been, of course, in the state of lockdown, and I thought it was a very interesting point he made, and Paul and I were going to discuss this a little bit, and I'm going to kind of gloss over it a little bit, but remember, we had no MILB season, right? So, in the Perth Heat case, the Alex Halls, Ulrich Bajowskis, Robbie Glendennings, they didn't play. Any affiliated ball player who has an affiliated gig is Australian in the MILB, did not get any reps this year. Now, the only lone exception would be a guy like Alan D. San Miguel, who was in the taxi squad with the Royals. But by and large, your Aussie prospects who weren't in the big leagues didn't get a chance. So guys for Team Australia, whether it be the under 18s, under 23s, the national team, none of them got reps, right? It's trickling down here. So the earliest reps, a guy like Ulrich Bajowski we talked about last week, playing in the State League, finally getting some reps, and the Tigers got to be happy he's getting some reps, some time in the field. They've got to be excited about that. But not every state's playing right now. Victoria was one that Stuart mentioned to me was not. Will that be? And I asked this question to Paul, and I'll throw it out to you guys, and my thoughts are this could be a problem. And I mean my problem, I know guys are taking cuts in the cage. Guys are playing catch. They're working out. But if the State League's not going full-blown, if you're not playing full-blown schedules, and by the time let's just say the season starts January 5th. Or let's just say it starts middle of December like it was supposed to. You've already got, usually by now, 3 weeks of October, all of November, you will have dang near 2 months of baseball under your belt when your ABL season starts. You've got the kinks out, you've thrown some innings, you're working on your curveball, you got that out, you got a change up you're working on, you've got that out of your system. You're just getting the rust off. We've been in COVID lockdown, the whole world has been. There's been a lot of rust on a lot of us. I haven't called a game in forever. I'm going to sound pretty rusty in my first game. So with all that being said, is there a disadvantage? I mean, yes, the aces are loaded, but you think of it from that standpoint, those guys not getting reps here and there, but you're not getting a full-blown state league going like you're getting in the West, for example. That could be a competitive disadvantage, meaning the aces may be a little slower out of the gate, which does concern if you're an aces fan, I would think, because the season will be shorter this year. We know that, regardless of it's the plan under the microscope now is shorter, and it's going to get shorter, I would think. And you're not going to have a lot of time to get out of the gate, and you're going to have to hit the ground running. It's a slow start. We saw this in the American Association this year. A slow start buried one team 2 weeks in. We saw it in the big leagues, really a 10-day stretch doomed several teams. And you're not going to have time to really get up to speed. And those extra reps, this game of life, this thing we live, it needs repetition. The more I do this show, the better I get. The more we do whatever we do, the better we get, right? The more at bats we get, the better we're going to be in the Olympics come up this summer, or at least the qualifier, and so on. The better chance a guy has a chance to, Bojowski has a chance to make a double-A club, the more at bats he gets this offseason. So all this is in play, and something I didn't realize I hadn't thought about, but I appreciate Stuart for bringing that up to us because I had not thought about that and from those standpoints. So those states and those areas that aren't up to speed playing their state league ball, there could be not to say a learning curve, but a slower start in the season. And a season you can't start slow. This is not a deal in years past where you can reload come January 1st, shift the deck cards a little bit there, get you a new deck, and throw out three imports you didn't have before. It ain't going to work that way this time. So it's going to be a little different look. And I thought it was a very good point that Stuart made about the aces and about the situation in Victoria. A guy, I should have headlined this whole segment of guys couldn't be any nicer. There's two gentlemen I'm going to talk about on this hot stove report with the ABL that couldn't be any better gentlemen. And this gentleman right here, Scott Mitchenson, Perth native, now lives in Victoria, couldn't be a better guy. This guy, my first year in the league, 12-13, just enjoy meeting him and his family. We've developed a great friendship. He is a class act. Not only is he a class act, he's also a pretty crafty right-hander. Situational guy, veteran guy, a guy you can throw in any situation. He can close for you. He can set up for you. And what makes him so scary for a doubleheader, because he gives you depth. A guy that can do, hey, first and second, 2 down, I got to get an out. He's your guy. Matchup situation. You've got a guy over the top throwing 90+ over the top. Now he's going to come get a guy with 3/4 from the side and come in and throw a little bit 3/4 from the side with some more movement down the zone, get that ground ball with 1 out and 2 aboard, a double play ball. I mean, this is the kind of guy, or he can spot start for you if he has to. He can get a save for you if he has to. He's done that before. He's a versatile guy, veteran guy. Over the year, I didn't realize, Scott, apologies that I didn't realize you were 35, but boy, time flies when we're having fun, doesn't it, mate? But didn't allow a run in 2 2/3 last year in the postseason, and he's one of those guys that's got titles in 2 different cities. It's one of the mates that joined him over there in Victoria and then made the move and got that Aces Claxton Shield. Of course, part of those Heat titles as well, former Phillies, Athletics farmhand. I had forgotten this. He goes back to 2004 in the States, playing both the Phillies system and the Oakland A's system through 2008. He made 71 starts in 79 ball games, mostly a starter in the MILB back in the day. Also was a member of Team Australia over the years. Fifth in appearances, 121 in the relaunch competition, 210 strikeouts, 12th all time. Just to be padding those numbers. Last year, 3-1, 2.63 and 15 outings last season for the Aces. But you're getting a good one, and you get that guy, get one of those guys back, and again to see Scott Mitchenson again. Part of my all-time good guy team, and I got one more coming to you in a few minutes from that same team. We're going to have Scott back in the league here. Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate, as we do a little rolling right along here, and we're talking about gentlemen that mean a lot to not just their team, but to the national team and just the baseball community in general. I don't know this gentleman very well. I don't know him. I know him as a Twitter follow, and I know him from his time in the States and just following him a little bit. But Travis Blackley back in the fold again for the Brisbane. I thought I had their logo. I don't have it. Well, where'd it go? Anyway, let's go ahead and put his shot up there. I love that color scheme. Blackley back, always Brisbane. You know, this is a guy that has been a great ambassador for our game. I think of Todd Van Stensel, same type of guy, has traveled the world playing over the years. This is a guy that's a great ambassador, but also a big part of what this Team Australia is going to do. Should this team qualify for an Olympic berth, this is a guy that's going to be counted on to do it. This is a guy, it's a former big leaguer, of course. And I'm going to give you a couple of insights him too. Lefty as well, 37, which again, Travis wasn't realized. Travis again was up at 37. All-time 3.26 in the relaunched ABL earned run average. 2-3 mark, 2.93 last season in 6 starts, 13 appearances with the Aces before the Bandits in 15. This guy's got a long history, not just the ABL, but of course Seattle, San Francisco, Oakland, Houston, Texas, KBO, the Mexico at AAA. 2007 and 2009, the World Cup for Team Australia, World Baseball Classic, 17 Classic, 18 exhibition against Japan, 6, done it all. I mean, the guy's done it all. Premier 12, didn't appear last year due to injury, though, but this is a guy that's done it all. And did you guys realize this? Travis Blackley has pitched, of course, 82 ball games in Major League Baseball. I didn't realize he pitched that many games. I knew he'd pitched in multiple stops, but I'm thinking probably 30 games. 82 big league games, parts of 5 seasons. But what makes this guy really interesting and why he's so important to the Bandits and to our growth of our game in Australia is the experience he has at the top level in Japan, Korea, and the United States. 3 baseball powerhouses. He's pitched at the top level at all 3. His 1 year in the KBO, he had a sub 3 ERA, 3.23. I mean, the guy is pitched in Mexico at a very high level there. 18 pro seasons worldwide. Now listen to this number: 2,239 and 2/3 innings. That's 2,000 plus innings of pitching. 18 years professional baseball. Wow. 4.02 ERA over 18 years. That's a career ERA. 18 years pitching, 4.02. And that has a chance to go down this year to below 4. Next game will be 500 pro games. It's 499. His first pro season, 2001, Everett, Washington in the Northwest League. How about that? But again, just a phenomenal guy to have coming back, and great for the Brisbane Bandits. The Bandits, they're going to be fired up to have him back. But I was going with those numbers. Did you guys realize the wow numbers there? I mean, wow numbers from Travis Blackley there as he's back with the Brisbane Bandits. 5th season with the Bandits. Boy, it just seems like yesterday he was across the country in Victoria. Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate, Dan Vaughn, flying solo here for you to Friday morning, Thursday night in North America. Questions, comments, love to hear from you guys. They're out there. I love to hear from y'all. Love to know what's going on. Mention guys that go on my just all great guy team. This next guy never fails to stop by and say howdy, stop by, and he's also part of the Brisbane Bandits family. stop and just shake the hand, smile, whatever, nod. He's come over from the on deck circle, broadcast position in Brisbane. That's the one only Donald Lutz. And Donald, of course, former big leaguer with the Reds. I've told his story a little bit on the air. You know, he probably still in the big leagues for not a freakish injury that happened, making a play in the outfield and just slowed his career down and trying to get back. It was hard to get back for him. It never did. Reached AAA several times. One of the nicest young men. He had a chance to meet him sitting with the T-Bones a few years back. Phenomenal short time there and a lot of friends. Big time part of what the Brisbane Bandits are doing. He's a big face of the community, baseball community there. I mean, he's a recognizable name in that market, and this league needs more of him. But I can tell you, I've been in that broadcast position. There's two places we broadcast there: in front of the press box, or it's a little cooler down low next to the dugout on the first base side. And there's been several times during commercial breaks, he'll come out in the on-deck circle, come over and visit with me when I'm sitting up against the fence on the radio, or just come by and just shake my hand or smile and say, hey, thumbs up. Could not be a nicer fella. And you tap that the fact he's a heck of a ball player and hits a lot of home runs. Former big leaguer returning for his sixth season there. 31-year-old outfielder, 7 seasons in the league after returning to Canberra. First going to Canberra in 10-11. I'd forgotten about that. 6th all-time alongside T.J. Bennett with 38 regular season homers in the relaunch league. 180 games, 246, 129 driven in for his career. Last season, a little down with 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 182 the average of 29 ball games, but he has led the league in home runs and is recently at 17 and 18. He had 16, left-handed hitter, and this is a guy that played in 62 big league games across 2 years, 211 in the show, and 2012 MILB organizational all-star with the Reds as well. But a guy that's been a phenomenal, and we're talking about ambassadors, Travis Blackley. I mean, guys for our league. Of course, Donald, a native of Germany, but is pretty much a part of the Brisbane fabric, and he is every bit a part of the Bandits family as anyone. And if you think of, when I think of the Brisbane Bandits, one of the first guys I think of is Donald Lutz. And again, he and Scott Mitchenson couldn't be nicer fellas, and just couldn't be phenomenal young men. And they're phenomenal young men and just really great examples of how to go about your business. And welcoming back Donald Lutz to the Brisbane Bandits. And now we shift our conversation now to those folks in the ACT. Several things. I mentioned in the opening of the show that there's actually some really interesting things going on off the field, both in Canberra and by the way, Tampa has tied it up 3-3 as they're the 8th inning. So that one. But one of the things Paul and I believe in Talking Baseball Australia is the growth of our game from a promotional standpoint, sponsorship standpoint, from that whole angle. And I think Canberra, with Dan Amodia, who's done a phenomenal job there at the helm of Canberra over the years, I really think what they've done with the things of their alternate logos. I love their merch, the atmosphere at the ballpark, the whole take me out the ball game, the atmosphere, just it's got a real minor league atmosphere, a real good, fun family atmosphere. I think the atmosphere in Canberra is hard to top. They have their own brew, as a matter of fact. We love Chris Coleman. We love him. We love being on the air with him. We love going to Canberra. We were there last year for the postseason, a disappointing Heat loss. But I think Canberra does a lot of things right. And another thing they've done right here is they've actually secured a naming rights sponsor. Lifeline Canberra Cavalry is their new sponsorship name. A historic partnership, raise awareness and funds for Lifeline Canberra is the company or the group. Partnership is special in a sense that anytime you get a naming rights sponsor, there'll be team, whatever you want to call yourselves, it's a big deal. It means people are out there hitting the streets. That people in that market know their brand, respect their brand, and love their brand. And that's very important. That means name recognition. And if Canberra is able to get out there and knock on the doors and get a sponsorship, naming rights sponsor, that's huge. That means they're doing their due diligence. something we talk about, all markets, and you want to see this. I don't care if you're a fan of the Aces, the Blue Sox, or whoever. You may dislike the Cavs on the field. You may want to beat their brains in, but you want to see these things. You want to see naming rights. You want to see major sponsorships. You want to see your links all be strong in this department. I mean, I want to see every team have this opportunity. And we see what Brisbane does with Mark Reedy, what he's done with his sponsorships. You saw what they've done over the years. That getting back in the community, knocking on doors, making partnerships, strategic partnerships, marketing partnerships, whatever you want to call them. These are very big developments for our league. And so good for Dan and company there. It's also Lifeline Canberra mental health. And this is a quote from Modia. Mental health is a key focus throughout our organization. We hope this announcement will help us do our part in raising awareness for their cause and raising a lot of money for their organization. I think it's really a really cool thing. But again, Lifeline Canberra, which is a mental health initiative there, is a team's naming rights, donated the teaming rights to Life. They've actually donated the name. And it's not always about the money coming in. It's about the synergy you create, the goodwill in the community, and getting your name out there. And it doesn't always involve a big sponsor. It could be an initiative like this. And it's a great one. Reading more about it, just kind of scanning the story here. But the team's official name change, significant branding, the team jerseys as well, and a flagship activation and partnerships will be initiative through a Save the Seat series as well, and all kinds of odds and ends with that, but some VIP treatment. But the Lifeline Canberra Cavalry is kind of a cool thing, that, but donating that name to the cause to help and that partnership. And then we'll hopefully get some of those folks on from Canberra and talk about that. I know Paul has reached out to Dan as well, and with the Cavs to get a little bit of that. So good to see that. Whenever you see something like that happen, you got to be fired up again. You want your league to be strong. You want things like that to happen as we shift into more Canberra news as well. I do believe I got some more Canberra news, don't I? Think I do. Yeah, I do. This one came off their Twitter, so courtesy of their Twitter. But this is the big news is that back a page here, my script here. Canberra, those guys we talk about, these Lutzes and the Blackleys. This goes right there with it. And Robbie Perkins, the Perkins boys have always been a big part of this league. And Robbie eking his deal. I couldn't believe this. He's been around 8 years in the ABL. 8 years in the ABL. He's only 26. 255 in the relaunch league, most of any of the 255 games, rather, most by any of the Cavs regulars. Their most ever. He's played the most ABL games, a record holder, and his coming in for his 8th year. 259 in the league, 19 overs, 110 RBIs. He averaged more than 300 for the 3rd time in 7 seasons, hitting 310 with a homer, 11 driven in 29 ball games. Of course, he's a Canberra-born, raised Team Australia in 2017, Premier 12, also a member of Australia win in the 16 threes there in and also played a little time in the minor leagues. 214 games in the minors with the Rockies organization, reaching AAA and 207 in the minor leagues, homering 12 times and 58 RBIs over his career. So good to see the return of, again, we talk about it every stop, every city's got to have him. You got to have those mainstays, and he's back. And Robbie Perkins, so good to have him back. Talking baseball, Australia Live. Baseball's best mate, Dan Vomity, running solo here, about to wrap this thing up, rounding third, heading for home. By the way, questions, comments, love to hear from you guys. And if you do want to pop on, I mentioned this earlier, I don't know why people won't do it. Don't be scared. Pop on if you want to. Love to have you join the guest line. If not, go ahead and fire your questions away. I'm here to answer them as best I can. One more thing we've talked about, and I'm going to give you a little special. Oops, sorry about that. Give you guys a little special. I don't know how many games we're going to play this year. I mean, I don't think any of us know. Will it be 2, 20, what? We don't know. But we do know this, and I'm going to go ahead and give you this. There is a little thing called the Manny Effect, and it's in full swing. Let's give you the preview of the Manny Effect. Here we go. Little jazzy feel there, the Manny Effect. Want to hear it again? Let's hear it again. The Manny Effect. The Manny Effect jazzy music. Manny Effect is in full swing here. Again, it's something Adam Dobb said, the CEO and owner of the Sydney Blue Sox. He told us this. And Manny doesn't have to hit 300 and lead the team in RBIs and home runs. He very well might, but he's not required to. He's there for a lot of things to help lead the team, be a part of the team, a lot of reasons, but on and off the field, several things. And I'll tell you, the Sydney Blue Sox are getting their money's worth so far. First off, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but they are definitely onto something here. I'm going to put the Sydney Blue Sox logo up here, but they're getting their money's worth. I mean, again, if they don't play a game, which I think is highly unlikely, they're getting their money's worth. First off, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Manny and Rachel Bakelvec, the new hitting coach, which we talked about her 2 weeks ago, are going to be having a hitting clinic, and you're going to have one of the premier hitters in Major League Baseball in the last 20 years, along with this phenomenal young lady as a coach for the Yankees organization. You're going to have them holding hitting clinics for Blue Sox youngsters. I mean, how about that? I mean, can you imagine being a Blue Sox faithful and saying, oh, wait, this opportunity now to register to a hitting clinic with Manny Ramirez and Rachel Bakelvec? I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, you don't get these opportunities very often in most cities in North America. But you're going to get this opportunity there in Australia. So the Manny Effect in full swing there, and that's item number one for the Manny Effect. Manny Effect number two, I don't know if you guys saw this, but this is a little piece as well. And of course, the merchandise thing is always a big player. But I saw this. This is something Adam Dobb actually put out. Diamond Stars is excited to announce that they've got this Ramirez glove going on here. An endorsement of 44 gloves for Manny Ramirez. Diamond Stars is a maker of the 44 gloves for Manny. And not only is his endorsement as a player and a coach, but he'll be aboard the company as a special advisor to the company and baseball ambassador to the Australian market. So you got the Manny glove right there. That's coming, the part of the Manny Effect. And here's another shot of the Manny glove right there. There it is. I believe it's coming for you. I believe. Come on. There we go. Yeah, let's bring this down. Here's another shot of the glove right there. There it is. So you've got that with Diamond Stars, and I believe, did I have that? I thought I had it pulled. I won't worry about it, but I had it pulled up for you guys. But Diamond Stars there. So Manny getting some effect. Then, of course, merch. We talked about the merch with Adam Dobb a couple of weeks ago about how good that's been going. So the Manny Effect in full swing in Sydney for the Blue Sox. And to wrap things up on the show, the Blue Sox also, part of their New York Mets contingent is also the final piece of the Hot Stove League, as they've signed left Andrew Mitchell, a Mets farmhand. He is a young man who's out of New Orleans, Louisiana. He will be coming to Sydney via the Mets organization. Went to Auburn. Talked a bit about Auburn as well. Auburn's a very Southeastern Conference powerhouse in baseball, where Frank played his collegiate baseball and also his NCAA football. Auburn, a powerhouse in the SEC. The SEC, one of the three best college conferences in North America at the highest level. Blue Sox lefty from New Orleans, Jesuit High School, also a football star as well. Last year in 2019 at St. Lucie in the Florida State League, 3.14 ERA and a 1.15 walks, hits, innings pitched. You know what we'll do? We'll break that down in a couple weeks. We'll do some stats behind the stats to kind of, what is that? Because I say it all the time. You're probably going, what's a whip? Hey, Vaughn, what's a whip, mate? Well, it's walks, hits, innings pitched. 14th round with the Mets at 18, and he will be part of the Shane Barclay's pitching arsenal as well. And I know that Adam Dobb, got my owners mixed up. They'll be excited to get that piece of the puzzle with their new agreement with the Mets, coming with the rest of the Mets prospects as well. But congratulations, another good signing. I'll tell you this. I don't know right now if I could make if this season goes with all these rosters. Could I just close my eyes and throw a dart at the board and that's who I'm going to pick? Because I really think that I can make a case right now in the hot stove that everybody looks pretty daggum good. But really, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Melbourne, no particular order. You're still the champs until you knock the champs off. And then Adelaide in the mix. And then you think, well, the Heat, surely those youngsters. And then Canberra. Every city's got to feel pretty good this year more than any, as far as their roster makeup. There's been such great work done in the Hot Stove League by all the clubs. Every club's done a phenomenal job, including Auckland. And Geelong Korea is going to have some really deep talent as well. It just goes to show you where this league's gone and where this league's evolved and where it's come from over the years. We've gone from being, some prospects to now legitimate prospects and legitimate powerhouses with Australian talent as your base. It's going to be a fun time if we ever get this thing off the ground. That's of course, remains to be seen, the loaded question. All right, final call for questions and comments here on Baseball's Best Mate, Talking Baseball Australia Live, as we round third, head for home. Next week, Paul will be back. We also expect to be joined by Cam Vale. We do believe he'll join us. As long as there's an announcement to be made. Now, there's always a chance that there's no announcement made. If there's no announcement, we'll have to call our plan B, our audible as well. But we do believe, we were told this week that Talking Baseball Australia got it on good authority that we expect to have an announcement midweek and have Cam Vale on next week with us as well. Coming shows, we are working hard behind the scenes to get you major league talent as well. So that's been something we're working on as well. So hopefully we'll have some major league talent to join us on the show. Of course, you can follow us on Talking Baseball Australia on our Facebook page. Our website, by the way, tomorrow it will be launching its beta form. I'll be tweeting that out. But next week, I hope to be able to give you guys a very good quick preview of our new website that'll be up on with our Facebook page, which you're watching us at right now, revamping some other social media. And of course, Paul Morgan at Paul Morgs, his Twitter, of course, my Twitter at Dan Vaughn Jr. We'd love to have you guys follow us along, and we're there for you. We're going to follow you back, answer your questions, comments, and I love to hear from you guys. I know we didn't get a lot of comments today. I know a lot of folks probably going, hey, Vaughn's just talking to talk, but we had a lot to get to, and glad you guys took a little time out of your busy day to join us and talk some Talking Baseball Australia live. It's baseball talk from an Australian point of view. That's what I like to call it. But the show continues, solo or not solo. Quickly checking to see who stopped by. I want to give you guys thanks. Sorry about that, guy. Sorry about that. I hear myself talk there. Just kind of seeing who else is out there. But glad you guys did stop by. Again, questions, comments, last call for those. I'll give you guys a last call. The good news is, this week, no matter what happens in Australia, whatever happens with the play as far as the schedule, how that looks, you got a great announcement on Major League Baseball perhaps coming back to our shores. You've got plenty of Manny being Manny, some Manny impact. You've got plenty of player signings, some excitement there, some new partnerships marketing-wise in other places, a lot of things going on. I don't know if that means we're going to play a full schedule or not, we don't know that. But I think what you can see is the foundation's really getting solid. We're getting some solid foundation here. And if we can continue to put these things together, good player signings, good news, goodwill, Major League Baseball wanting to come over, more imports, more Australian talent, you name it. All the things that are happening, whether it be Australian talent, Mets talent, whatever, marketing agreements, all these things happening. These are all parts of our foundation. These foundations keep happening, keep getting better. It's only going to get our league better. And that's the idea, is get this league better, continue to grow it. And when we do get back to some kind of normal, we'll fire this thing off and have a great Australian Baseball League season. It's definitely growing. I can tell you this, and I'll close to this final thought. I took 3 phone calls this week on interest in the Australian Baseball League. 3, for what that's worth. I'm not going to say who, what there are 4, but 3 calls of interest. That's an average week for me. That's actually probably a slow week for me. Usually it's probably 5 or 6. Maybe I wasn't available as much this week. But during the baseball season, during the American Association season, literally it's a daily, almost hourly occurrence. This league comes up in conversation. Make that of it as you will. But rest assured, baseball has a bright future in Australia, and we're going to get through it regardless of what happens in 2020 and 21. We got to fight through. I say it all the time to my folks here in Kansas City, in North America, and I say it all the time. Let's be better tomorrow than we were today. Let's show more love, more empathy. Let's be better fans of our teams. Let's just love each other. Let's love our rivals. You folks in Melbourne, you love the ones in Sydney and vice versa. Let's all love each other. Let's all do love and let's all fight through this whole mess. Let's be better at the end. When we play baseball, we'll be enemies on the field. We'll be mates off the field as we try to fight through this crazy 2020. Next week's show again, 7 a.m. in the West, 6 p.m. in North America, Central Daylight Time. That's the Texas time zone. 7 a.m. in the west of Australia. Adjust your timepiece accordingly. We do expect to have Cam Vale and also my broadcast partner, Paul Morgan, will be with us again next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. Just stop by and say hi. If you're watching on replay, glad you did. Share this broadcast. Tell folks, hey, you know what? These guys are pretty good. We like them. Want to hear more from them. We're there. We're here for you. Want to have you be a part of what we're doing here at Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate all year long until next week. Dan Vaughn had to press that close, the part I hate the most. Saying goodbye till next week here on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate all year long. Here we go. Roll the close, folks.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the